Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg, and you're probably aware this is Teddy, my new dog, who is using his position to stare out the window very intently. So I don't know if he'll last the whole time. He would probably love to sit in my lap the whole time I film my Friday Reads video, but I don't know that I can pull this off for a whole long time. So I just wanted you to be able to see him and say hello to him because a lot of people have asked how he's doing and they've said that they really enjoy getting the Teddy updates. So he has been living with us since October 1st. He's settling in and getting comfortable, which has been really good to see. He's a very good boy, still very sweet and considerate, still very active. I mentioned last week that I was having a little bit of trouble because he tries to jump up on me a lot while I'm working. We'll get to the Friday Reads portion of this video in a little bit, by the way. There will be a link down below if you'd like to jump to that. But yeah, a lot of people love the chatty portions, and that was good to hear. So I'm going to keep doing that, and I'll just have that link for anybody who wants to skip. I did finish 2 books this week, and I have more ongoing, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so I had mentioned that he jumps up on me a lot, or tries to jump up on me, and just really wants me to pay attention to him and play with him. And I think I've noticed that there's probably an anxiety connection to that, because the days that he does that the most are usually days when he gets left in the house. So I've been going to physical therapy for my back. My back has been a problem for a long time. When I was about 21 or 22, I was in a car accident, and it's just been a thing ever since. So I've been doing physical therapy. So on certain days, I have to go for physical therapy, and he gets left home alone. When I have my weekly therapy appointment, he gets left home alone. And I feel like those are the days when he really just manically will not leave me alone. So I'm sure there's an anxiety response. He was literally abandoned at some point recently. We don't know exactly how long he was on his own before he was found. So I think that understanding has helped a little bit. I mean, obviously, I've always been able to be patient because he's a really cute and sweet boy, as I said, who, again, is still... Actually, I wonder... I have a little squirrel statue on my desk. I honestly can't tell if he's looking out the window or if he's looking at the squirrel. That is hilarious, because when we go for walks, he is actively looking for squirrels. Let's see. Hold on, Teddy. Is it this you're looking at? Is it this? Is it this? Is that what you want to see? He was looking at the squirrel on my desk. Okay, we're not going to lick it. We're going to be really careful with that, actually, because this was a gift from my sister, and we're going to be... But yeah, so he was looking at that. Really funny. And now he's just staring at it in my lap. So there you go. But anyway, he's a really sweet boy. He also has been avoiding Jamie's beds in the house. And just yesterday, as I'm filming this, he actually crept into the one that's on the floor next to my desk where she used to sleep while I was working. And he actually took a nap there while I was working. So that was nice. And now he's trying to climb up on my desk to investigate a little more. But so there's your Teddy update. He's a really sweet boy, and we just love having him. We're so glad he found his way to us, and I'm so glad he's starting to get comfortable in the house and with us, and that has been a joy. Again, I don't know how long he's going to last on my lap, just because, oh no, the dogs across the street are out, so he's looking really intently at them now. So the other thing that's going on, that's not book related, I didn't really feel up to talking about it in my Friday Reads last week, even though it had happened by the time I filmed it. My grandfather passed away last week, and I did post about it on Instagram. I just really didn't feel up to talking about it in a Friday Reads, because the feeling at that point was very raw that I was not going to be able to go home or go back. Home is Montana, but I'm originally from New York, so that's where the funeral was, and I was not going to be able to go, and I knew that. So I was still kind of working through the feelings of that. My grandfather would have been 99 years old in November, and he's been in decline for the last 2 years after we lost his wife, my grandmother, and it was probably bound to happen at some point, but he had been very healthy until these last 2 years. And again, he just, I think, was missing grandma a lot. But I've also been reflecting on his life a lot, just in general, but also because I have just finished Interpretive Maladies, which is a book about immigration. Spoiler for the Friday Read section. And I've been thinking about the life that he built here in the United States a lot, and the family that he built here in the United States. And I'm grateful to be part of that. And I've been thinking about immigration in general as well, because I've been learning about Ireland and Scotland as we get ready to go there next year. And that's where my father's family is from. My mother's family is from Italy. That's where my grandfather immigrated from. And just the life that he made, and how amazing it is that he managed to make success when he had a 5th grade education in Italy. He had been incredibly poor during World War II. He started out young enough that he was not called by the army, and then he just didn't want to fight, so he stayed hidden, and he and his family had nothing during the war. They were completely impoverished. Their town was occupied by German soldiers, and he came to the United States after that by marrying my grandmother with an arranged marriage, and they worked together for more than 70 years. And I think Teddy has had it. So there we go. We're going to let him go. And he's going to run to the front window to look at the dogs across the street again. But yeah, so I've been thinking about that a lot, and I can talk about it. And I got a lot of really nice comments on Instagram, so thank you if you were one of the people who left a comment there. And I'm not feeling so sad that I couldn't go back to New York right now anymore. I couldn't go back for my grandmother's funeral because of the timing. The vaccines were just rolling out when she died, and it just felt difficult to travel, especially with my grandfather being so high risk. So I didn't go, and now there were some concerns as well. So it didn't work out. But I am much more able to reflect on the good things that he built in life with my grandmother, and how proud I am of both of them. So that's been really good. Moving to some bookish things, not the Friday Reads portion, but just some bookish things. The first thing I wanted to mention is that Jessamine Ward's Let Us Descend has been released. I had pre-ordered a copy before I got the advanced reader's copy that I have on my shelf. So it came in, and I got it anyway because I'm a fan of Jessamine Ward and I'm excited about this. I haven't been able to talk to anyone about this book because a lot of people had not read it yet. So if you have finished Jessamine Ward's Let Us Descend now, if you are in the process of reading it, I would love to hear what you think of it. Please let me know in the comment section down below. I'm just excited to have conversations with people about this book now that it has been released. And I had done a review of this book at the time with no spoilers, so I will link that down below if you'd like to check it out. But I'm really looking forward to having conversation with people about Let Us Descend now that it has been released into the world. We were in Helena last weekend because we went to see the Grand Street Theater's production of Misery, which had been adapted into a Broadway show and is now touring. This is our ticket. And they did a great job with the show. I am a fan of the book Misery. I know people are kind of really hit or miss on Stephen King. If you don't like Stephen King, you just don't want to hear about him on BookTube. And that's fine. Misery is a good one. I think Stephen King's work is really up and down. Misery is a good book. And I think it's a good book because, in part, it really deals with him trying to get off of the drugs that he was on. A lot of Misery is about Paul Sheldon trying to get off of the painkillers that he is on. And Stephen King was going through sobriety when he wrote the book. And I think that's really interesting as well. So I just wanted to mention that because there's a bookish connection there. The other big book thing that has happened in the world is that the Women's Prize judges for 2024's prize have been announced. Now, next year is the first year that they are doing the nonfiction prize. So the nonfiction judges are going to be Professor Susanna Lipscomb, who is the chief, and Venetia Lamana, Professor Nicola Rolock, Anna Seba, Camilla Shamsi, who is a fiction writer, and I will have links to both of these down below. But those are your nonfiction judges for next year, and the fiction judges are going to be chaired by Monica Ali, which is a huge get. They've had really great chairs for their juries in recent years, and this is no exception. They also have Ayobami Adebayo participating, and Laura Dockrell, Indira Varma, and Anna Whitehouse. And again, I will have the links to the announcements down below if you would like to check those out. And with that, I think we are actually ready to pivot into the Friday reads, which is exciting this week because I finished 2 really great books, 5 stars all around. I'm really enjoying the book that I've already started, and I'm about to begin a new audio. Hopefully today, possibly tomorrow. So I'm filming this on Thursday and it's going to be posting on Saturday, but time means nothing on the internet. You could be watching it at any point in the world. Let's talk about the first book that I finished this week, which is Loved and Missed by Susie Boyt. I might be getting more sentimental as I begin getting older, and part of that is because I read Wandering Souls by Cecily Pinn in July, I think, and just sobbed when I got to the ending. I sobbed so much that, I was like snotty, like that extent of sobbing. And thankfully, Joel was home that day. So I had been listening to the audio while I was working, and I was able to just, stop working for a second, go down to his office and get a hug. Unfortunately, Joel was not home when I finished this book because I sobbed with this as well. Not to the point of being snotty like I did with Wandering Souls, but boy howdy, did I sob when I got to the ending of this book. I hadn't been taking notes as I was working my way through. Usually, if I feel like I'm going to take notes or if I want to take notes, what I do is I come here to my desk and I'll get an index card and I'll take notes on that. I don't usually take notes in the book itself. But I did something that I have not done ever before. I started using tabs as I got toward the end of the book. Again, not something I have ever done before, but I was reading with Teddy and I really wanted to start taking notes, and these were at hand. I could reach them. Joel and I were using them when we were going through 2 books we had gotten about tourist destinations in Ireland and Scotland so we could take notes. So I just was able to use those because there are a couple of points where there's just really gorgeous writing that lands really well throughout this book. But as you get into the end, it's like face-slappingly good. And when I say that, what I mean is that you read a sentence and it's so good that you feel like you've been slapped in the face and you have to read it again. And then again. And I don't think there's really an example that I can give that wouldn't potentially be a spoiler. But there are just really beautiful passages toward the end of the book. It can feel a little slow in the first half. But again, boy howdy, there is a huge emotional payoff for all of the work that Susie Boyt does in the build-up to the book. So, if you didn't see last week's Friday Reads, you might be wondering, what is this book about? So, Ruth is the protagonist of this book, and she has a daughter named Eleanor, who they had a pretty solid relationship until about the time Eleanor turned 13. And then Eleanor started getting really difficult, and Ruth didn't really know what to do, and it felt like everything that she did was wrong, and just made Eleanor even more angry and hostile toward her. And Eleanor started spiraling into drugs and going away from Ruth, and she didn't know what to do, and she kept trying to love Eleanor, and Eleanor just kept getting more and more distant as she headed into her adulthood. And so there's a bit of trauma for Ruth, who is a very loving and caring and kind person who blames herself for her inability to build this healthy relationship with her daughter. Eleanor becomes pregnant, and she is like fully addicted to drugs at this point. So Ruth's granddaughter, Lily, is born addicted to drugs. She has to be weaned off of them in the hospital. And the back of the book cites something specific as the sort of inciting incident, that causes Ruth to take Lily. But that's not actually the way things flow in the book. They say that someone dies of an overdose in Eleanor's apartment. And that does happen, but it's kind of in the mix of the flow of things. Like Ruth has already sort of begun the process of taking Lily into her care. And she ends up raising Lily, and it's sort of a second chance at motherhood for her. It's a way of atoning for what she perceives to be mistakes that she made with Eleanor, or worries that she made with Eleanor. And she's hoping that she can do better this time around. But also, because she has such a strong connection to Eleanor, because she wants Eleanor to love her and to have this loving relationship that she has always wanted, she's also taking care of Lily as a way of caring for Eleanor and hoping that Eleanor will come back. She's always hoping that Eleanor will take interest in her daughter's life and in her life and become healthy. And there's just a constant series of disappointments. And then as you work your way through the book, Lily starts to get older and things happen, and it's a really beautiful story about love and the power of love, but also the futility of love in the face of a lot of these things, and how you can't really plan things in life. Things just kind of happen. You can't actually prevent things from happening. As much as Ruth loved her daughter, she couldn't prevent a lot of the things that happened to her ultimately. And yeah, it's an extremely powerful book. It's not that long either. It is 198 pages, very powerful. And if you're looking for something, I know there's Shorty September now, but there used to be novellas in November. So if you're looking for something under 200 pages, I would highly recommend this book. It is that good. And part of why it resonated so strongly with me, if you follow along, you know, Joel and I are foster parents. I still say we're foster parents, even though he has not lived with us in 2 years. He moved out in 2021 under extremely difficult circumstances. Being a foster parent is very difficult. I have had a couple of people reach out and ask questions about the experience, and I think it's important to be honest about that because it is a difficult process. And my relationship with my foster son really was sort of triggered by a lot of things that have to do with Ruth's relationship with Eleanor. That sort of hope that you are going to be able to get someone on the right path in life, and ultimately knowing that it is a situation that is out of your control. And in my case, that was because my foster son was already 16 by the time Joel and I met him. We didn't know that he was going to live with us as long as he did. He lived with us for 4 years. And yeah, he moved out when he was 20. And the struggle of wanting someone to do well and hoping that they do well and hoping that you have given them the tools, and just standing on the sideline knowing that you are sidelined and that there's ultimately nothing you can do, and you just hope that you have done enough. And I am lucky because there have recently been signs that my foster son is turning his life around and doing well, and that has meant a great deal to Joel and me. And I wish that Ruth had been able to experience that. I mean, no spoilers for the book. Her daughter it's a relationship that is never fulfilling on either side, and you never quite understand the daughter's perspective. But yeah, so it resonated very hard, and that's probably a big reason why it ultimately made me cry so much, but also because of the love that she pours into her granddaughter and that she tries to put out into the world, and that her granddaughter, I won't say anything else, but it's a really great book. Loved and Missed by Susie Boyt. 5-star. I think I gave it 4.75 stars on Storygraph, just because there are some situations where the narrative feels a little bit dreamlike, and you don't always know what's real and what's sort of imagined. Like sometimes it'll be a little tricky because someone will, even the granddaughter Lily at some certain points will be like, she'll say something and then it'll be like, but that's what I wanted to say, but I didn't. Here's what I actually said. So there are a couple of instances where it almost feels a little confusing. Like, did that actually happen, or is this kind of dreamlike? I don't know. I may bump it up to 5. I think this is a 5-star read, so I think I'm going to bump it up. It's really great. Loved and Missed, Susie Boyt. It was just released by the New York Review of Books. I would highly recommend that you seek out a copy. I requested it at my local library, and they did not pick up on that. So I ordered a copy for myself from Montana Book Company, and I'm so glad I did, because it is a really tremendous, tremendous book. So I already mentioned the other book that I finished this week, which was Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. This is a Pulitzer Prize winning book. I read this book not long after it won the Pulitzer Prize, which was, I think, in the year 2000. And I started working at Borders in 2001, and I would have read this not long after I started working there. It was one of the first books that I purchased with my employee discount at Borders, and I have loved this book ever since. I have reread it, I think, a couple of times in those early years after I read it for the first time, I have read the first story in this collection, which is called A Temporary Matter, many, 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 many times over the years, because I think it is just a fantastic short story. There are a lot of great short stories in here, but that one is the standout to me. And because it is a Pulitzer Prize winner, I will have a deep dive on this coming. I need to finish my deep dive. I was going to pull up To Kill a Mockingbird and hold it up, but it's buried underneath a bunch of stuff, so I'm going to leave it. So I am trying to finish my deep dive on To Kill a Mockingbird so I can film it tomorrow. I'm hoping, again, I'm filming this on Thursday, October 26th. So my hope is that on Friday I will be ready to film my deep dive of To Kill a Mockingbird so I can schedule it for Monday. If I can't get it finished, I might try to film it on Monday and post it on Tuesday. It'll be coming. And once that's out of the way, I have already kind of started, because I didn't want to lose my thoughts on this. So I've already kind of started work on the deep dive for this. I wanted to reread this now because her new book just came out, and I had wanted to time the deep dive with the release of Roman Stories, but that didn't happen. My dog Jamie died, and I was in a tailspin for a while. So I'm sort of catching up to this. But so that deep dive will be coming. I will say, because I had read this book so many times before, I did listen to it on audio. It's a short audio. It's pretty clear that this was an older audio that was recorded for CD. So it's not great. I don't recommend the audio. It's fine. I had read it a lot before, so I felt fine doing it that way, but I wouldn't recommend it to other people. The narrator, not great. Some of the voices, not great. And there are very intrusive musical cues in the audio, so I would not recommend that you go that way. And again, I will have a lot more on this one when I do my Pulitzer Prize deep dive, but this is another 5-star read, and I have known that since I read it the first time all those years ago. And it's a great book. Absolutely great book. If you are someone who doesn't typically read short stories, I think this would be a good collection because, one, it's short. How many pages is this? It is, again, not over 200 pages. It is 198 pages. Same exact length as Loved and Missed. What do you know? So if you want an access point for short stories, this is a really good one for that. It was also one of my 25 best books of the last 25 years. I will include that video in the description box down below. So once I finished Loved and Missed, I think on Tuesday, I picked up Armistead Maupin's Tales of the City. I had been thinking that I would do this on audio, but two things happened. First, Jen the librarian commented on my last Friday reads to remind me that she had had a bad experience with the audio of this book. So that was the first thing that made me say, maybe I should pick up the book. And then the second thing is that Killers of the Flower Moon finally became available on audio for me, and I do want to read that before I see the movie. I'm hoping that I can do a book versus movie comparison. I haven't done one of those since The Power of the Dog, and I think that would be an interesting one to do. So I wanted to finish Interpretive Maladies, and then I'm going to go into Killers of the Flower Moon on audio. So that meant that I picked up my physical copy that I've had. So this is part of the Queer TBR tackle for this year. It was one of the ones that I picked that has been on my shelf for a very long time. I have had this copy of the book since the late 90s when I was in high school, because I had seen the TV miniseries and was a fan of them. So this is reading really quickly so far. I picked it up yesterday and I have not had time to read it today. So I got to page 66 in a single day. And a lot of that was stuff that I read before bed. So I made a lot of progress really quickly. So if you're unfamiliar, I'll talk a lot more about this next week because hopefully I'll be done. I want to be done before the end of October, and that's, that door's shutting. So, but I will definitely talk about it in my next Friday reads a little bit more. But if you're unfamiliar with the publication history of this was originally serialized, I believe, in the San Francisco Chronicle. I wonder if it says on this. It does not. So it was serialized in a San Francisco newspaper. I believe the Chronicle. Don't quote me on that. And they were it was over the course of the installments that were published, it became wildly popular in San Francisco. Like, people were going nuts trying to find out what was going to happen next. And then when it was finished, it was published in novel form. I believe he made some changes to it. However, I don't know For sure. But so what I hadn't thought about, given that, is that the chapters are really short. So chapter 1, Taking the Plunge, is 2.5 pages. Then Connie's Place, 2.5 pages. A Frisco Disco, 3 pages. They're all in that realm. So it's kind of like reading a James Patterson book, but no offense to anyone who reads James Patterson, to me it's a lot better than reading a James Patterson book, but it does have that bite-sized, compulsively readable thing going that you would find, that a lot of people find appealing about James Patterson and his writing, because his chapters are always really short. Not a James Patterson fan, although I do really love what he does for independent bookstores, so I will always respect him for that. But it has that same compulsively readable quality. Also, this is a story that I've already know and am very familiar with because I have watched the miniseries many times. I can't get Laura Linney and Olympia Dukakis out of my head for the characters of Anna Madrigal and Marianne Singleton, and that's a good thing. So I will be making more progress in this. As I said, I got access to Killers of the Flower Moon on audio. I had been waiting for months for that, so I'm glad it came a little bit timed to the release of the movie. The movie's already out there, but I'm hoping that I can read it quickly and that I will then see the movie and maybe do a book versus movie comparison if there's enough to say about it, and I imagine there will be. I also have library apocalypse going on here, and let me just run through them because I haven't figured out what I'm doing about that because it's a lot. So I got Country Girls by Edna O'Brien a while ago, and I have it extended, my borrow of it extended into the first week of November. So I need to figure out if I'm going to read this now or if it's going to be easy to get from the library. So if I'm not ready to do it now, I should return it and get it again when I am ready. That should be easy enough to do. I also have Twisted, The Tangled History of Black Hair Culture by Emma Dabiri. This should be a pretty quick read. So when I was looking for Irish and Scottish book recommendations and author recommendations, I had said that I really wanted people of color, if anybody could recommend. And one name that came up a lot was Emma Dabiri, and my library has a copy of Twisted. So I got it, and I'm hoping I can read it. But again, I don't think I'll have trouble getting this back if I return it and come back to it when I'm actually ready. So I might do that for both of those. Now, I had requested a bunch of the National Book Award longlisted books when that was announced, and they actually purchased 2 of them. And because I had requested them, I was first on the list. Now, based on the feedback I've gotten for Pony Boy by Elliot Duncan, I don't think I'm in the mood to read this right now. So I did borrow it because I had requested it, and I do want to read it. But I don't think this is a right now book. So I'm probably going to return that one and loop around. I do really want to read Holler Child, Stories by LaToya Watkins. Really looking forward to this book. And I'll link the National Book Award long list reaction that I did down below if you want more information about both of these books. Both of them did not make the finalists, but they are definitely something that I would like to read. So that's my library situation. I think I'm going to release all but Holler Child and circle back to the others when I'm ready to them. But I definitely want to get to Holler Child. So we'll see how that goes. Killers of the Flower Moon is coming up next. And I'd love to hear what you've had going on this week, what you've been watching, loving, all of that. Have you ever seen the stage adaptation of Misery? Let me know. All of that in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.